Well, hello there everybody, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays, the channel where I get to play games and ramble about nature while doing so. Now, we are back in theHunter, Call of the Wild, on the Emerald Coast here in Australia. And we are just heading into the bush here to see what we can find. So let's have a look. Now, we are, as you can see, right here in the southwestern corner of the map, here on the Dry Bone Plateau, heading into Little Darling. And we are just going to see if we can find any deer, particularly today. I really want to talk about some deer. And deer are, of course, exotic to Australia. They don't occur here naturally. And Australia has a massive feral deer problem as well. Now, last time I did talk about the feral goats, which are a problem. The feral deer are also very rapidly becoming a problem. And especially things like red deer initially were quite isolated within their invasion that they were having, and in the past few years, actually since 1995, they have really started taking over large parts of the country, especially the eastern section of the continent. So we are just going to quickly try and cull some of those. So let's have a look and see what we can find. Now we are heading into some more wooded areas now, and this is actually perfect habitat for a lot of the different deer species. Australia has got 6 different deer species that are invaded. There's chital or axis deer, red deer, fallow deer, sambar deer, Javan rusa, and then one that I forgot which one I haven't mentioned yet. But yeah, hog deer, I believe. Yes, hog deer, that's the one. Okay, so there are 6 deer species that are invading Australia. Now, they prefer forested areas with grasses. Now, as you can see, we don't have a lot of grasses here, but we could find deer in this area. The reason they love forested area is a lot of them, with their fur patterns, their coats, they actually have got a whole bunch of spots on there which act like disruptive camouflage, which breaks up their outline so they cannot be spotted as easily by predators. So in the open areas, it's not as effective. It is moderately effective, and the spots do still break up the outline, but it's not as effective as in forested areas, where those spots actually simulate these lighter spots you can see on the ground here, with sunlight shining through the trees onto the ground. And if you have a chital, for example, the axis deer, they have those spots on their bodies, and if they're standing under here, under the trees, those spots really mimic the light shafts hitting a rock or a stump or some other object. And that is what we call disruptive camouflage, a type of camouflage where the coloration of the animal, and sometimes the shape as well, will break up the outline, making it more difficult to see what you are looking at. Ah, we've got fallow deer. Perfect. Okay, now if I lie down in this little shrub, I am completely hidden. And what I'm going to do is use my antler rattler to try and get that fallow deer to come closer. Now, the antlers on deer, of course, are there for sparring with each other. They are trying to determine who is the dominant buck in the herd or in the area. And when they spar, they are creating this rattle with their antlers. And of course, now that I'm using this antler rattler, the deer that is in that area may think, oh dear, there's another one or two in this area. Oh, there's also a red deer that's actually coming closer. I may really want to be taking out the red deer, and unfortunately I'm in a very bad spot to take out red deer. It's going to be right over this crest of the ridge here. Anyway, here comes the fallow deer. It's a small one, but it is one nonetheless. And that was a horrible shot. Again, Will is a little bit trigger happy and doesn't think about waiting before taking the shot. Nonetheless, we have got him twice. Hopefully with the right weapon this time around. Now it's just a case of finding him. Not going to get a trophy from it, but again, we are here to try and remove exotics like the fallow deer from the population. So that's our main objective. Sure, if we can get gold trophies and diamonds, that's great. But our goal is to try and remove the exotics. So one may ask, why on earth bother about removing the exotics? And the reason is that they are really stuffing up the ecosystem. They are competing with the indigenous marsupials, which evolved without most placental mammals. Australia was separated from the rest of the continents before placental mammals could really invade. Only some bats and rat species actually made the journey over to Australia naturally, without human assistance. Unfortunately, I know one of the rat species is now extinct. It was a rat species living just offshore on little rocky outcrops, and unfortunately they have gone extinct due to rising ocean levels. The little areas that they were on, the little rocky outcrops on shallow waters, yeah, those got flooded as the ocean levels rose, and unfortunately now they are extinct. Anyway, so as I was saying, exotics like the deer species here, they will compete with those indigenous species, the marsupials, the kangaroos, for example. They also stuff up the ecosystem quite a bit. They are really destructive feeders, and they change the habitats as well, especially males that will spar against little shrubs, damage those, may debark them or ring bark them, may rub up against them, and in the process then also ring bark the trees. So they have got, in many areas, they actually cause quite a bit of habitat change due to decreasing the density of trees in the areas that they are in. Now, in the areas where they naturally occur, that's fine, because the trees are adapted to a lot of their young little saplings dying due to deer and other species rubbing up against them and killing them in the process. But in Australia, they're not used to that. And I see we've got a hog deer as well. It is somewhere to that side. Anyway, we're not here for the hog deer. We're here for our little fallow deer that is basically dead now, or should be dead, somewhere up here. And here he is. Okay, did not get a vital. I figured as much. Basically 2 flesh wounds, but we managed to get one nonetheless. So yeah, looking at the little antelope here, you can see the spots all along the body here. That's of course what I was referring to with it being part of the disruptive camouflage, where you've got lighter spots imitating the little light shafts hitting vegetation or rocks or stumps along those lines, breaking up the outline, making it a little bit more difficult to see that you are looking at a deer species. Additionally, also has what we call countershading, where it's darker above and lighter below. And a lot of antelope species will also have that. Also really helps with breaking up the outline, where it's also a little bit more difficult to spot that you are looking at an antelope, for example. Regardless of which direction you're looking at, it's not just one color. It's got white and it's got dark. Even here on the back, it also has that. Has these black markings as well. A little bit of disruptive camouflage happening here. But of course, the main feature of deers would be the antlers at the tip here. And I know in my ARK playthrough, I constantly kept on calling the antlers horns, especially of Megaloceros, the Irish elk. But they had antlers, not horns. There is a slight difference. Antlers are, for example, shed every year, whereas horns will grow for the rest of their life. Basically, one set of horns grown continuously, whereas antlers are shed every year. Antlers, also, as you can see here, are branched, whereas horns are single, straight or curved structures, not branched like you have in antlers. And horns also will always appear hard. It's coated with keratin, a hard structure, basically like your nails, that covers the horns, whereas antlers will, when they're actively growing, will be covered by a fluffy type of hair called velvet. It gives you that velvety appearance as well. Only at the end of the growing season, when they're ready for the proper breeding season, will they shed that velvety cover, and will they have a hard antler, like we can see here. Technically, the antlers over here should still be covered in velvet. It's not fully grown yet, and then it will have a hard antler during the main breeding season. That's cool. We managed to get, one deer. Great. Let's see if we can get some more. We're just going to keep on going north towards this watering hole, that little lake over there. I always like going for lakes because a lot of these antelope and deer species, they are really water dependent, so they will go to drink water at least once a day. Also have the tracks of the stubble quail over there, an indigenous species that we can hunt in the game here. I think these will be droppings as well, quite small, yeah. There's also a Sambar Deer up there. I think Sambar is the largest. Yeah, there we go. That is a big one. Unfortunately, he is fleeing, so no chance there. But yeah, Sambar is the largest of the deer species, at least the deer species invading Australia. If you're looking at the family Cervidae, there are of course moose as well in there, and they are the largest of the cervids. So that's another difference between antelope and deer, for example. Deer belong to the Cervidae family, along with elk and moose and things like that, whereas the antelope will belong to the Bovidae, or the cattle family, which includes things like buffalo, cattle, goats, those types of animals. Bison included in there as well. So different families, but both of them are even-toed ungulates, meaning that they've got hooves and they've got two hooves, as opposed to the odd-toed ungulates. And examples of those odd-toed ungulates would of course be horses, but also things like rhinos. They're also included in that group. Ooh, I see something big. There's a whole group of red deer. Now, red deer are very widely distributed in the northern hemisphere, I believe mostly Europe and Asia, and of course invading in Australia, because of course they've been put in there. But they have been also one of the most well-studied deer species in the world. There have been demographic studies of them on the Isle of Rum, off the coast of Scotland, for many, many, many years. And with those demographic studies, they know which ones are related to which ones. They know how old they generally get. They know all kinds of different things based on that in-depth study that they have done. Oh, there's something calling. A Sambar Deer warning call. Oh, you know what? Maybe I am going to go for it. As I've mentioned, the Sambar being one of the largest deer species, you can hear the warning call that it was giving there, that short whack. That is very often a warning call given by deer and antelope species, where the idea is to tell everyone in the area, listen guys, there's danger over here, but you don't want to give your position away necessarily. Chital deer or the axis deer will have a very similar sound when they, for example, spot tigers and other predators. So very often alarm calls are a loud sound, traveling quite far, but it's very short and does not give your position away. You don't want the predators to now know exactly where you are while you're trying to warn everybody else that there's a predator in the area. But I'll be honest, until like I think last night, I thought the red deer was the largest one can hunt on the map here. I didn't realize Sambar deer was even larger than red deer. So previously I had heard the Sambar deers, I'd heard them calling the alarm calls, and I'm like, nah, it's fine, I'm after the red deer. But with Sambar deer being so large, it would be great if we can actually get at least one of those as well. I'm just going to walk up to this crest over here and have a look then. Of course, the deer were brought into Australia for venison, so for meat production, and then from there they either escaped or were released intentionally onto large areas, and as a result they have invaded large parts of Australia, especially the eastern section of Australia, as I've mentioned earlier. Now, interesting is that deer species are native, or there's at least a deer species on every continent except Australia and Antarctica. Antarctica, of course, makes sense. That's just a frozen desert. And of course, there he goes, right over here. There it goes. Okay, got 2 shots in. Probably going to be running for the rest of his life, however long or short that may be. As was mentioned, Australia has about 1 to 2 million deer running around as feral deer. So these are excluding the ones that are still farmed and actually within their camps, for example. These are ones that are running wild. And a lot of the provinces in Australia have also declared them pests. So they basically shoot on sight, get rid of them as quickly as possible. And that's because the governance in Australia, and most of the provinces at least, realize that deer species are highly destructive to the native Australian ecosystem, and they should be taken out as quickly as possible. There are three provinces that are not necessarily doing that. And the one is Tasmania, which has not declared, at least last I checked, has not declared them pests, so they are still considered game animals, and you have to have permits to go and take them out and those types of things. But this little guy zigzagged up the hill. And then I think Victoria hasn't declared them a pest yet. Most of the provinces declared pests, so you can shoot them without a permit, get rid of them because they are a problem. But two of the provinces, they are protected as game animals, even though they're not indigenous. And a third one, that legislation, they may be classified as pest animals, and then may be legal to take them down without a permit. Because if you don't take them out now, they will very, very quickly spread. I mean, considering that between 1995 and 2007, so within a 12-year period, the red deer populations, I think they went from 5 small populations to 60-something populations. That's 12 times as many. That's just a massive increase. And obviously you don't want that continuing on. So best to get rid of the problem now. The same thing goes with exotic plants. Once they're established in an area, you really need to get them out before they become a massive problem. If they already have become a massive problem, then you've lost the battle. Then you will spend millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to get rid of them. Notice again here, this little guy is a youngish one, and it has got the smaller antlers at the moment. It's got branched antlers, typical antlers branching, with horns would have been straight or curved, but a single shape, not branched like the antlers of this deer is, of this Sambar deer is. Now, antlers, of course, shed every year and regrowing again every time they are getting ready to breed. And by the time the main breeding season rolls around, they should have at least nice big antlers. Now, the advantage of this is that it gives a bit more accurate representation, for the females at least, of how well this male is doing. The more energy and resources he can put into regrowing his antlers this year, the better he has been doing this year. On the other hand, if a male has a bad year, not finding enough food to grow massive antlers, it's only really a problem this year. If he does better next year, he will be producing bigger antlers. And that is, of course, it's a typical sexual selection trait. Males being selected for large antlers. This little guy would have been a silver trophy. Unfortunately, didn't get a vital at all. 2 flesh wounds. Yeah, figured as much. But we managed to get him down. The Sambar Deer. Now, Sambar Deer are even weirder than one may think. Especially the bucks, the males here, are quite strange. First of all, the way they mark their territory is by urinating on the ground, and then once there is a nice puddle of mud, of urine mud, they will rub the antlers on that and then rub it up against the trees. And that's like, okay, that's strange. But not only that, they will also mark themselves, because they have a very mobile appendage, and they can spray urine on their own faces. So please, guys, do not try this at home. Do not go and mark your territory by doing this. But Sambar deer, yeah, they will do this. And they're also not a very, very social deer species. Usually groups of 13 or 14 that you can find. But very often, the females are only found in groups of 3 or 4. Basically just herself, her youngest one, her youngest offspring, and then last year's baby that has grown up now as a year old. They are together, very often not in massive herds. They're also more crepuscular and nocturnal, so they're not as active during the day. So you'll find them being nocturnal, basically running around at night, or crepuscular, meaning that they are active at dawn and dusk. So in that darker time of the day before the sun shines too bright. But yeah, so those are 2 of the deer species. The Sambar deer, interestingly enough, is classified as vulnerable. So in its natural habitat, it is under threat, mainly due to hunting. But unfortunately, it is also invasive in Australia and is a problem. And it is one of those species where it's like, okay, It's rare in the area where it occurs, and it is going extinct in the areas where it naturally occurs, but it's a problem elsewhere. Unfortunately, in order to conserve more species than just one species in Australia, the Sambar deer needs to be taken out. You have to weigh up the number of species that are conserved. If we let the Sambar deer remain in Australia, there is another red deer somewhere down there. I'm just going to call it. But if we let the Sambar deer or the red deer, all these different deer species, if we let them remain on Australia where they are not naturally found, then it's like, okay, we are conserving them, they are present, but at the same time, they are causing the possible extinction of a variety of different species, not just themselves. So, keeping that in mind, you can't now go and say, okay, we will conserve the Sambar deer on Australia because they need to be conserved. We need to conserve them as much as possible. They are going to cause the extinction of hordes of different species, and we can't have that. There is a male coming closer of the red deer. He should be very, very close now. Here he comes. I don't have a clear view of him yet. He is there. Just going to drop down a little bit. Make myself quite invisible. Thankfully, the wind is blowing to my right-hand side rather than at him, so he doesn't know I'm here yet. He is just hearing two other deer fighting, and he wants to come and have a look and see if he can challenge the hierarchy and become the dominant male. About 50 meters off. He is right here in front. I saw his antlers. Now, I do have a red deer specific caller. So we could, of course, try that. Because he had been attracted to the antler rattler. But maybe he's a little bit more keen to come to the red deer caller. Patience really is now the name of the game. Oh, it's a warning call. I don't know how, but I think he knows I'm here. Okay, I'm just creeping closer to the red deer now. He has given a mating call in response to my challenge that I've set out here. Let's see, if he does come closer to us, that'll be marvelous. Of course, he would be somewhere around here in the shrubs, amongst the shrubs. Would have been great if he were just standing here in the open. Unfortunately, no such luck. Oh, never mind. There we go. Found him. Oh, okay. My heart is beating in my chest, guys. Look at this beautiful, beautiful red deer male. Now, this male is prime. This male, oh, goodness me. Look at the so many branches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Wow, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous male. And the fact that I managed to get him with one shot means that I must have gotten him in the heart. I'm guessing in the heart. But yeah, this male, the hard antlers here, it has shed its velvet. It is now really the hard bone that we can see here. It's a pity that it would have shed this, like at the end of the breeding season, and had to start anew. But nonetheless, let's have a look. It is a gold trophy. Oh goodness, that is a proper gold trophy. Oh my word. Such a beautiful one. Wow. Okay, well, this one is going to be taxidermized. That is for sure. And we will be talking about red deer and all the other species again next time. For now, though, however, this is the end of today's hunting session, guys. Nick and I will be back on Sunday evening. So remember, we are not doing the live stream on Saturday anymore, not tomorrow. We are doing it on Sunday, where we are going to be playing Grounded again. So come and join us for a bit of a relaxing time, also while we are trying to kill a whole bunch of insects with our new weapons that you'll see in the game there. And until then, everybody, thank you for joining us on our little adventure here. Hope you have a wonderful day further and a lovely weekend. So until next time, everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Bye.